Our presenter is John Ward, and I have a very brief description, as you may have noticed. It's a rational look at the Bible. Moses, Christianity, the devil, etc. John is known to be a humorist. He also has written some short stories, I found out this morning. And I'm trying to talk him into putting him into a book. John was born and raised in Africa. His father was Irish and his mother Italian. He studied in South Africa, Italy, the UK, and the USA. He has degrees in theater, psychology, and business, and has been a financial administrator, a venture capitalist, a managing director, and an international investments consultant. These are his words. He says he's the worst Catholic since Genghis Khan. I just wanted to say that some of you have seen my email address, MasterJames1. John was the first person I ever met that said, I know what that is. He was called Master John in Africa. It's an old traditional English and southern U.S., and I guess Africa too, probably some English influence. But I was glad to hear somebody else understand what it was about for me. Master James was a lot of what they said in the South, but that was already taken. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Let me get out my card. I'm going to try not to bore you. Thank you very much for that. That was wonderful. I had so much difficulty not getting up and dancing. And in fact, I don't know why anybody else did, but my wife and I used to do that. Yeah, that would be wonderful. But you know, I can do something similar, but it's with a Coke bottle, and it's just a foghorn sound.
Actually, when I was only 4 years old, my mother was the musical one in the family. She could sing, and she sang in choirs and stuff like that. But my dad couldn't carry a tune to save his life. But one thing he could do was blow on a beer bottle and get all kinds of sounds out of the beer bottle. When I was about 4 years old, he, showed me how to, blow a beer bottle.
Okay, and thank you. That was my talk. So. I feel so privileged to be asked here to Open Circle. I had no idea it was so easy to become a speaker. Jim told me just put 500 in the collection plate and you can be a speaker. So I'm going to talk about, oh, by the way, I just want to say I don't want to change what you believe. I don't even want to change the way you think about it. I'm just going to tell you what I think when I read these books, like the Bible and a thing called the Gnostic Gospels. I don't know if you know this, but there is a whole section, huge section of the original Bible that was cut out in the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Hippo in North Africa. They went in and edited the Bible, the book that says, please do not edit this, and they cut out a lot of stuff that they said, no one's going to believe this stuff. So we're going to cut it out and we'll put it in a thing called the Gnostic Gospels. I don't know if anyone has read this. If you haven't, it's worth reading. She will attest. It's fabulous. And it's also referred to as the other Bible. You will find little nuggets of information like, for example, we all are taught that God is the first and only kind. God is the beginning, right? Now in the Gnostic Gospel, you'll find out that God actually had a mother and a father. And his mother's name was, can anyone guess? Yes. Good man, Sophia, if you didn't hear that. His mother's name is Sophia. And at one point she scolds him and says, if you don't behave, I'm going to speak to your father, the master of all things. He doesn't have a name, but he has that title. So it's interesting that the whole concept of God being the beginning is blown away by this section of scriptures that is called Gnostic Gospels. What does Gnostic mean? Well, it's originally Greek, but the Romans took it over and called it, and said, for example, you know what an agnostic is? Agnosko means I don't know. The Gnostics are a group of people, it's originally Greek, but became Roman, and in 1964, the Catholic Church commissioned a group, mainly Jesuits, because they're the intellectual order, to read the Bible and understand the Bible. Not just read the Bible and feel the Bible, read the Bible and understand what it's saying. And this group studied it very, very hard. And 90% of them left the church. These were priests. And they read it and they just went, okay, I've just had my eyes opened, and they left. Now, I don't think, and I'm not going to say there will always be, not always be religion. There always will be religion. There is a rise in atheism. The USA Today did a poll and found that 1 in 5 Americans prefer to have no religion at all. That's 20% of 300 million people. That's a lot of people. And in Europe, there's a movement right now. You'll see billboards and things saying, the bad news is there is no God. The good news is now you can stop worrying and enjoy your life. Well, is this necessarily a good thing? In some ways, yes. I mean, we all know that sometimes religion can be horribly destructive. You see it going on all the time in the Middle East, and you see some of the atrocious things that happen there, but you don't even have to go that far. In Colorado, there was a couple whose child had appendicitis. A very simple operation. It could have been fixed like that, but they decided to pray over that because their religion said, no, we can't go to a doctor. And the appendix burst and the child died in screaming agony. Just a completely stupid, useless way to go. Recently, a young girl was crushed to death by her family because they said she was possessed, and the only way to unpossess her was they had to lie on top of her, they believed. So you can see there are, the amount of destruction involved in certain beliefs is myriad. I mean, you'll see it all over the place. However, are there any good things? Yes, there are. For example, my cousin died recently. I hardly knew him, so please don't feel bad. He was a nice young boy. He had had a lot of troubles, and he wrote a book about it called Tell Them I Love Them. And he had reformed. He was only 40 years old, very young. I knew him when he was 6. That was the oldest I knew him. And he died recently from something that you shouldn't die from. Anyway, his mother, my aunt Aletta, is reconciled by the fact that he is with the Father. And, you know, although I think that she... Who? I just lost. I think that she she's deluded. I won't tell her that. I'll tell her, yes, you're absolutely right. He's probably up there with your husband, my Uncle Italo, reserving a front seat, you know, in Heaven's Theater so you can watch everything when you get up there yourself. But anyway, I have written 2 plays, one called The Immaculate Deception, and the other one called The First G-Bomb. The first G-Bomb, let's start with that, is about how God in his infinite mercy nuked Sodom for having too much fun. If you read Genesis 19, and I read the Bible and try not to read it emotionally, a lot of people will not understand the Old English, and this is why we won't translate it into modern, understandable English, because if there's things you don't understand, you can put a feeling on it and say, yes, that I really feel that, you know, God is long-suffering. The hell does that mean? It just, you know, God long-suffering. Okay, good. That's enough for me. If you read it and think about it, if you want to stay a Christian, do not read and understand the Bible. Do not read and understand the Bible if you want to stay a Christian. Some of the things written by, for example, St. Paul, he's a misogynist. He hates women. And he will teach you how to handle your slaves. And he will say, you, for example, no, not you, because you're so international. Who's an American here? Put up your hands. You, okay. You cannot own an American slave, but you can own a Canadian. That's in the Bible. Or a Mexican. But these are the things that you'll read. Anyway, so don't read and understand the Bible if you want to maintain your faith. Now, in the first G-Bomb, if you read Genesis 19, these 2 angels supposedly have been sent by God to get Lot and his family out of Sodom, because God's about to nuke Sodom. Now, before that, Abraham has this long conversation with God. You know, Abraham had a lot of conversations with God, and generally what we do today with people who are having conversations with God is we put them in a rubber room. But Abraham had very convincing conversations with God. And in this one, he had this conversation in which God said, you know, Abraham, I'm thinking of destroying Sodom. These people are having too much fun. And Abraham said, well, what if there are 50 good people? And God said, well, 50, all right, I'll spare it for 50. And he said, well, how about 35? And God said, well, for 34, well, okay, I'll spare it for, well, how about, and he goes down in 10s and 15s. And God, who is an omnipotent being, doesn't say, look, I know where you're going with this, so stop going down in 10s and 15s. You're going to get down to 1. So he says, get down to 1. He says, how about one good person? And God says, all right, for one good person, I'm not going to spare it, but I'll get him out. Okay, which seems practical. What we don't know is, also in the Bible, Lot and Abraham are cousins, and they're big landowners, and they have sheep on their land. And Lot's sheep keep eating Abraham's pastures, and vice versa. And they have these border conflicts constantly. So keep that in mind when you think about someone who needs to be removed from the area. Okay, so the angels turn up in Genesis 19. And Lot says, "O holy angels, turn aside, I pray you, and enter my home." Which means he was expecting them, right? How did he get that message? Did God send a telegram? How did he get the message that these angels are coming? But he's at the gate of Sodom, and he invites them in. What do you think the angels would say when he says, come on into my home, and, eat some unleavened bread and various other things we have there? They would say, what would you think? They'd say, yes, let's get in there and get you packed and get you out of here because it's going to be a big explosion. The angels in Genesis 19 say, no, we'd rather spend the night in the street. Now that immediately raised a flag for me. It doesn't make any sense. So in my play, these are two con men on the run in these white garb, these white outfits. And one says, why white? Couldn't you have stolen something, darker? They're chasing us. And Lot falls off his chair onto his face in the dust and invites them in and says, no, we've heard about Sodom. It's a swinging town. We'll stay in the streets kind of thing. He offers them, in the original Bible, he offers his daughters. People were very free with offering their daughters. And not only that, he says, my wife will bake unleavened bread. Of course, he starts with the bread, and they're going, no. And then he says, I have my two daughters, and I put the term, tame interpretation on it. I said, my two daughters will bathe your feet. And my angels go, oh, okay. We don't want to disappoint two girls with foot basins. Anyway, they go home with him. Well, what happens at Lot's home? According to the Bible, he says, they sit down and they eat, and Mrs. Lot, of course in my plays all the women are smart and all the men are stupid. I don't know why that is, but anyway. She kind of suspects there's something going on here. But all of a sudden the people turn up outside and they say, okay, send out the strangers for we want to know them, which we're told means we want to shtup them. No, was back in those days was Yiddish for make love to. And so Lot goes out and he says, "O my brethren, do not act so wickedly. Behold, these men have come under the shelter of my roof. I have two daughters who have not known man. Take them and do with them as you wish, only leave these men alone." That's the kind of guy God wants to say, right? Okay, so the angels come out and they push him back. Now in my play, of course, it's very Monty Python-esque. As he says that, they go, no, we've all had them, and one guy in the back goes, no, I haven't. Oh, shut up. Anyway, I seem to be focusing on your face. I don't know why, sir, maybe because you're a good-looking guy. I don't know. Anyway, so the angels come out, and they push him back inside, right? And they close the doors, and they say to the people, they blind them for being wicked, and they send them home. Now, who saw that? Well, all the people who were there and were blinded and were killed the next day. The angels, supposedly they're back in heaven. Lot didn't, nor did Mrs. Lot or the two Lotettes. Nobody saw it but these people who are gone. Okay, so who reported it? Was there a guy? Hey, this is going to be great for my Bible, jeez. No. Who saw that? Nobody saw that. Okay, So in my play, they say, listen, you guys, we got a plan for you to get rid of the last Bible thumper in Sodom. We want his real estate, okay? So we like to live in downtown Sodom, this lovely bachelor pad. What we want you to do is go home tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. No, they say, we've been drinking all night. All right, make it 12. Bring a lot of loud things, tubs to pound on and stuff like that to make noise. And we'll tell him there's going to be a big conflagration. Oh, okay. And one of my guys in the thing says, show us your legs. Shut up, man. Anyway, they leave. According to the Bible, they're all blinded and they feel their way home. And in my play it says, pretend you're blind and feel your way home. And one goes, hey, what are you feeling? Anyway, I don't mean to be promoting my play so much. But anyway, so they go and the angels go back in. The next day they say to Lot, all right, time to leave. God wants you to get the heck out of here. Let's go. They say also, now what would you do if you wanted to steal the real estate? You've got to make sure that nobody else has a claim, right? So they say, do you have any relatives that you might want to save too? Wait a minute, God didn't say anything about relatives. When he was talking with Abraham there, it was one guy. Okay, I accept the fact they don't count Mrs. Lot or the two female daughters because they're not people, you know that in the Bible. So, one guy, Lot, okay? But then Lot says, well, my daughters have fiancés. Yeah, well, you better go call them and get them out. What are they doing? Countermanding God's, instruction? Okay. So he goes to the sons-in-laws and he says, come on, we've got to leave, and they say, no, come on, leave us alone, Lot, please, we've had a hard night and we're sleeping now. So he comes back and says, no, they don't want to go. So the angels say, all right, come with us. And they seize him by the hand because he doesn't want to go. He's refusing, angels. They seize him by the hand, they pull him to the gates and they say, there, those mountains in the distance, that's where God wants you to go. Read your Bible. Lot says, gee, that's so far. How about this little town here? It looks kind of nice. I could go to this little town here. Jesus, if God said to me one word, run, I would start running and keep running until I dropped dead. I'd run around I'd run everywhere. If God, anyway. So he starts bargaining with the word of God. The angels say, okay, that town seems good. Just get the heck out of here. So he goes and he's walking. Now think about it rationally. If you're walking through the desert and you're not allowed to look back, how convenient. Because God gets a little shy about blowing people up. So he doesn't want you to look back. How are you going to walk? Like this? You in front, your wife behind, and the two. No, because to check on them, you'd have to look around. You might see what God's doing. So you'd walk like this. So now everybody, just pray and keep walking, and don't look back. Don't look back. Okay. So imagine Lot, Mrs. Lot, and the two Lotheads walking away from Sodom, and they hear all this noise, which in my place, these guys beating pans and stuff. Okay. At one point, Mrs. Lot, for the heinous crime of curiosity, is turned into a pillar of salt by God. Okay, that really didn't sit right with me. So, what I started to think about was, what is a desert? A desert is the bottom of a sea at some point. And down at the bottom of the sea, you have little thermals that rise up, and they build these stalagmites in the sea. Well, these salt stalagmites are very strong. And when you have the desert raised up, and you have winds and stuff that will blow the sand away, they won't blow these things away. So you have pillars of salt all over the bloody desert. So I think what was happening is walking along, and he's proselytizing, and Mrs. Lot goes, the last time he came in with the Lamb of God, before I could convince him it wasn't, they'd eaten all my bloody linens, and no, these guys are con men, it's got to be, and they're stealing all my crockery, and I'm going back. And I think she went back to make sure the house was safe. And he's talking, she's not responding. He looks to the right. He doesn't see her going back because he can't turn around. And he sees a column of salt right here. Oh, she's been turned into a column of salt. I don't believe God would do that to anybody for curiosity. Anyway, he leaves and he goes to the little town. Well, he's kicked out of that little town because he is the last Bible thumper in the valley, and they don't want to hear any more about it. So he and his daughters go up into these mountains where these caves are. And in the caves, they live there for a couple of days, and the eldest daughter comes unto the youngest daughter and says, "There is not a man to come unto us in all the way of the world." Another euphemism for stupas. "Let us make our father drink wine, so that we may lie with him and preserve offspring." You know that part of the Bible? Yeah. So, I mean, some people actually can quote it to you, and like me. Anyway, so the first daughter, they're getting drunk, and she stoops him that first night. And the second daughter, they get him drunk, and she stoops him. And one gives birth to the Moabites, and the other one to the Baobites, or whatever, some race. The dangerous thing here is if, some guy living in the hills of Tennessee, and he's stooping his daughter, and he's brought into court, said, God saved this guy, that's how good this guy was. And it's incestual rape, so what? I made them drink some wine, I stooped them, this is what happened in the Bible. These are the dangerous things, you see. And we accept that kind of thing. We're, oh, gee, is that what it is? Oh, yeah, well, I guess that's okay. It's not. But this is how they thought, and you have to look at it with a rational eye. You have to say, what is this all about? The whole Immaculate Conception thing. We'll come back to that, because I don't want to push another play of mine. It's a one act. I nearly got burned at the stake in Atlanta when I put it on TV. But Dr. Oettinger of the university there thought it was brilliant, so that's all I care about. Let's talk about Moses. Let's talk about why I think, and the courts know, that there is no devil. Everybody who's going around frightened of the devil. I'm going to start with a thing that will say to you, boy, there might be a devil. There's a great expression, I love it, because it's so logical and illogical at the same time. You might have heard people say this. The greatest trick the devil ever played on the earth was to convince them that he didn't exist. Oh my God! Oh, I love it! It's a conspiracy theory, right? I mean, it's the ultimate conspiracy theory. So, here's why I say there's no devil. And then I'll tell you why the courts don't believe there is a devil. In my opinion, there is no devil because who gave us the concept of a devil? Well, obviously, throughout the ages, even before Christianity, there have been thoughts of an evil spirit, an evil power, and a good power. But our devil, Lucifer, was given to us by Moses. Now think about it. In the case of Moses, you had a Jewish child with a great little brain, great, I guess, material to form. He's found in the bulrushes because he's been hidden, because his mother didn't want him killed by the Pharaoh. And he's found by Pharaoh's daughter as a little baby, and she immediately, the pheromones pass back and forth, and she goes, I want to raise this kid. Come on, let me keep this. It's like a pet at first. So he's taken and he's raised up and educated my head's too big for this thing, so I have to keep adjusting. It's pulling my ears back. Do I look goofy? Okay, thanks. It's like, so anyway, he is taken and he's raised up by Pharaoh's daughter in Pharaoh's palace and educated with Ramses and given the best education, and he and Ramses are just great little friends and competitors. They race their chariots all over the place, and they're always competing. And at some point, Ramses gets a little jealous, and he says to him, and by the way, the Jews were considered trash in Egypt. They just built the pyramids and all that. In fact, I'm wondering when they're going to ask for reparations. They were there to build the pyramids. They were the slaves, and they stomped on, straw and put it into mud to make bricks for homes and that kind of stuff. Well, at one point, Ramses thinks that Moses is getting too big for his britches, so he says, you want to know the truth? You're never going to be Pharaoh. Why? I'll show you why. You see all that trash out there? Excuse me. It's you. You're a Jew. Sorry. I'm getting over a cold. So he says, you're never going to be Pharaoh. And so Moses probably goes and checks with his parents. He finds out, yes, that's true. you are of Jewish blood, and you probably never will be Pharaoh. He gets upset, and he decides to go into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. And there, I believe, he thinks, okay, fine. I'm a Jew, I'll show you. He comes back, and he says, all right, these are my people then. See if you can build your damn pyramids without them. I'm going to take them out of here. Ramses threatens him with all kinds of mayhem, and he brings a bunch of natural plagues, like locusts, which still happen, and red or blood in the Nile, which is actually, depends on where the rain is at the headwaters of the Nile. There's an iron mountain. It's actually iron ore, and when the rains hit it there, that iron ore flows into the water and it looks like blood. It's got a kind of an oxblood color. Plagues of frogs and that kind of stuff, that still happens today. And of course this is all attributed to Moses and his powers. And he starts talking about the Jewish God. Well, eventually Ramses started taking him and says, fine, take him, get out of here. So he takes his people and they cross the Red Sea at a place where the sea parts, even today, by the way. Another great book I would suggest is The Explanation of Miracles. There is a place in, for example, manna. Manna still falls out of trees today. It's a kind of a froth that the heat causes the tree to exude. It's a type of a resin, and it hardens into a kind of a meringue. And the ants go up and eat it all the time. Anyway, there are two winds that meet over the Red Sea, and when they meet, they blow down and they blow up, and they push it down to a level that you can actually walk up knee-deep and cross. And when those winds stop, in comes the water. So you don't want to be there, and it's only about 12 feet high when it comes in, but you don't want to be there when the winds stop. But he gets them across. Now think about this. He's got all these people following him into the desert. They had a rough time back in Egypt, but at least they had 1 square meal a day. They had a place to stay. They were involved, in building magnificent structures. They had something. He's taken them through the desert where they're dying of thirst and hunger, and all they have to eat is a little manna. I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. Sorry, caught you on that second cough. Anyway, they're dying of hunger and thirst. And you know there have to be rumblings. There have to be people saying, oh, thank you. There have to be people saying, thank you very much. Let's go back. I mean, at least we had 1 square meal. We're starving. We're dying of thirst out here. And so he hears this stuff. So what does he do? He does a very wise thing. People used parables a lot in those days. It was a very smart thing to do. He gathers them all and he says, you know, I need to tell you a story. Long before the world ever existed. And of course, nobody thought to say, how do you know this? Where did you find it? All there was heaven and God and the heavenly host, his angels. And one of his angels, got ambitious and thought he could be as good as God. Just like you, Mustafa or whatever. And it's a parable. It's saying, don't get too big for your britches, And this angel, name happened to be Lucifer, thought he could be as good as God. And God got so angry and so threatened. Can you imagine an omnipotent being who could pop your head just by doing that, or just by thinking it, saying, pop! That was funny, look at your head exploded. Omnipotence is omnipotence. If you can do anything, right? Can you imagine an omnipotent being getting threatened by some angel that he could destroy with an eyelash? Anyway, he gets job security problems, and he says, all right, if that's what you think, if you think you can run things, not only am I going to throw you out of heaven, which would suggest that heaven is a contained space, but I'm going to create another whole kingdom for you to be overlord over. Boy, that to me is an incentive. Fine, create me a kingdom and I'll be overlord over that. Okay. So, he throws Lucifer out of heaven, and Lucifer becomes Satan. Well, I think he was trying to calm people down and stop any thought of revolution by using a parable. By saying, look, that happened over there and it could very well happen here. So he keeps them together for a while, but there's still these rumblings of revolution. Let's get the heck out of here. This guy doesn't know where he's going. He's leading us into a bloody desert. So one day he says, all right, I have to speak to God. He's a little hard of hearing, so I have to go up into a mountain because he, can't hear me when I'm down here amongst you guys. So he goes up into a mountain, the Burning Bush Mountain over there. The Burning Bush, he tells us it happened. There are explanations, there are scientific explanations. There is a bush that exudes a gas that will burst into flames in the desert sometimes. There is a bush that has flowers that look like flames. But I don't even know if it even existed. We have his word, and this guy who was in Sodom taking notes, I guess. So he comes down with the definitive moral code of all time on 2 tablets written in God's own hand, not like the Bible, which is divinely inspired, written in God's own hand. My God, I'd love to see God's writing. Look at how he does his G's, it'd be wonderful. So he comes down with these 2 tablets, and when he gets down, they're all dancing around a golden calf. Okay, I have to stop here for a minute. These are slaves in Egypt. Where the hell did they get enough gold to build a calf? Secondly, how the hell did they generate enough heat? Because gold melts at a much higher level than any other metal, even though it's soft. They will put shields on the space thing in gold, because when the space thing comes in, they don't melt. How did they, in a desert, even if they had dead wood lying around, why did they build a kiln that could melt gold and then make a mold and put the... Okay, so all this stuff makes me wonder. Okay, so he comes down, they're all dancing around this golden calf. He gets so mad that he smashes the tablets to the floor. Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, if God sneezed on a tissue and dropped it to the earth, I would guard that tissue with my life. Oh my, why didn't he do this? Holy Christ, look at you bastards dancing. Well, he wouldn't say holy Christ. God almighty, look at you bastards dancing around that golden calf. That's evil. Here, hang on. Just hang on a second. Put these... nice and safe. All right, give him a rock and throw it. That's what I would have done. That's what any of you would have done. Smash the bloody tablet. Well, the reason he smashed the tablet is the same reason that Joseph Smith lost the Book of Mormon. It didn't exist. But luckily, he remembered everything that was in it, and here I'm going to Moses was a highly intelligent man, very well educated, and he came up with the bloody commandments. I mean, some of them are pretty damn stupid. Number 7, you know why the Italians put a stroke through the 7? Because that's the adultery one. So they cross it out. The one about not coveting your wife. First of all, you've got to be thought police. Do you know that I'm coveting your wife? Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm joking. But if, you don't know if I'm coveting your wife. And is that a mortal sin? A mortal sin meaning you go to hell for that. I've got rooms booked in hell at this point. I mean, I'm going to be... Jeez. I've coveted a lot of wives. Only covered one, though. Anyway. But they, this is the definitive moral code. And I think Moses personally came up with that in his head. He's a brilliant man. Okay, so that's why I think there's no Satan. And you got to read the Bible and say, I understand. The Bible to me is a brilliant, okay, this is going back. A brilliant attempt to recognize the origin of the species.
God's will.
It is! There you go.
God's punishing you.
in my opinion, the Bible is a brilliant attempt to try to discover the origin of the species without Hubble telescopes and without electron microscopes and without all the things we have today. Because they didn't have anything, and they had to explain lightning, for God's sake, and thunder, and why the two come, they're related, obviously, because you'll see the lightning, and then you'll hear the thunder, but they're different times. How the hell does that happen? And the sun, and all this. So all these things had to be explained with very little scientific resources, and so it's convenient to have a father who's doing this all for us. Unfortunately, probably the person, if there is any kind of a God, the person who's right is probably L. Ron Hubbard, but, I hate to say that, but as far as I'm concerned, if there is some power out there monitoring us, I think, to think that we are the only intelligent race on a planet that is within a solar system that is part of billions in our galaxy, and our galaxy is part of billions of galaxies in the universe, and we're the only planet. My ears are coming off. With any intelligence, that's insane. I mean, in all that space, that's just nuts. And it's also very, it's hubris. We can't be. And anyway, I use the word intelligence very loosely. There's got to be other planets out there with intelligent life, less intelligent, probably more with more intelligence, or one or two maybe with less intelligence. And I see us as a petri dish. Let's see how we started out. Let's figure out we'll put this here and this there, and let's see if that cultivates, into a culture of bacteria. And oh look, they've got the nuclear bomb now. And the sightings we have of UFOs, which by the way is through the Bible. I mean, if you read the Bible, Zachariah is out in the desert and he describes perfectly a UFO that lands, burns the ground, and these angels come out. He calls them angels, but of course we know they're probably aliens, and they come out and they're glowing. You wouldn't believe it. It's in the Bible, and it's in a lot of Renaissance paintings and stuff. You'll see a UFO very quietly up there. Okay. Sorry, it has to change my batteries. I think you give me dead ones. No, that's
God did it.
So anyway, I'm getting the other question and answer time. Please don't ask me any questions. I don't know anything. But so unfortunately, I don't believe in thetans that were put down here and strapped to volcanoes with chains and all that nonsense, and then broke free and shook the local monkeys, and this is us. That's a little nuts. But I can see a superior race using us as a kind of a lab experiment and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's also. Whoa, 5 minutes. Okay, so I'll drop that right now. I'm going to go into the Immaculate Deception. When Mary, who is 16 years old, so is God a pedophile? When she finds herself pregnant, according to American law, she is. He is. When she finds herself pregnant, does she come out and say, "Oh my God, last night, God came, and I was so cool," and like, well, it was an angel with a vial of his semen. She doesn't do that. No, she hides it. Hell, if God came, let me ask someone who's not going to slap me. If God came to you at night and said, "You're going to be the mother of my child," wouldn't you the next day be thrilled and go out and say, oh God, I'd be so proud. Okay. She's not answering me. I'm getting a little nervous up here. Anyway, I don't know. I think I have some electricity going in me. So, what does she do? Does anybody remember? She goes to see her sister. Good woman there. She goes to see her sister Elizabeth. Cousin. You know why? What happened to Elizabeth earlier?
Elizabeth was barren for a long long time, but finally conceived and bore John the Baptist.
Okay, now, so some people actually do read the Bible. And the ones that don't are the ones who believe more, trust me. Oh, that's another statistic, by the way. They found that more atheists have read the Bible than Christians. Anyway, yes, she goes to see Elizabeth, her cousin, sister, whatever. And Elizabeth has had a similar problem. Elizabeth was barren for the longest time. Zachariah was her husband. And of course, back in those days, if there were no children, it was always the woman's fault, right? We know today that it can be the man's fault. Not for the reasons that I don't have a child, which is impotency, but for other reasons. Other reasons like, infertility, sperm with, right-angled heads to their tails and they kind of swim in circles and nobody gets pregnant. Okay, so she's barren. So late in life, which late in life back then was like 30, suddenly she finds herself pregnant. Does she come out and declare it? No. She hides it for how long? 5 bloody months. Now what happens at 5 months? You're starting to show. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to hide that, right? So what did she do before that? She realized, this is now, again, my opinion. You guys can argue with it. I agree with whatever you say. But this is my opinion. I think some good-looking greengrocer moved in down the block and miracle, he knocked her up. I think Zachariah was barren. So now she finds herself pregnant. Okay. So she hides it. Well, in those days, even in those days, you had remedies to bring on the menstruation, bring on the courses, like, not very good ones. I mean, like stick juniper berries up your nose and stand on your head and drink a glass of water. Whatever it was, there were ways to do it. He was there, he knows. There were quite good remedies. But they weren't as effective as the ones today. I'm sure you wouldn't argue with that. However, Mary goes in and says, what's happened? I'm pregnant. God almighty, I had sex with Joseph one time. Now I'm pregnant. What am I going to do? Okay. So Elizabeth said, look, forget about the remedies. They don't work. Okay? Here's what you do. You go home and you say, I've had a revelation. And now this is my interpretation. What do you mean a revelation? An angel came to you, and it's an immaculate conception. Oh, they'll never buy that. Yes, they will. Listen, bear in mind where we live. We live in the desert. We're all pretty much dehydrated. We live on pita bread and olives. It's a low-protein diet. Everybody's having revelations all over the bloody place. You walk in there and you say, oh, Mom and Dad, you know those revelations that everybody has? I had one. So, anyway, she goes back, and this is her explanation. Of course, the miraculous birth of the others, there was no DNA or any of that. She said to Zachariah, oh, no, this is yours, really. Isn't that great? So John the Baptist and Jesus Christ are related very closely. So when Jesus Christ comes down to the River Jordan and John the Baptist is baptizing all these people and they're all coming down and Jesus says, I want to be baptized. He goes, no, I recognize that you are the Savior. I should be baptized by you. There's a little bit of a family con game going on there. That kind of disturbed me. Anyway, so I wrote a thing called Immaculate Deception about that and just looked at the facts and put the most likely interpretation. Now, if you read the Gnostic Gospels, you'll find out that Joseph actually was away with his sons, his grown sons. He was a brilliant carpenter. The Romans used to use him all the time. When he came back, he found out she's pregnant. And he got very upset. And her maids all said, oh, no, no one did anything to cause this. The Pharisees didn't believe, because she had been given to him as his ward. He was looking after her. And they took them to the temple, and they said, we're going to test you. You have to walk around, and this was like a polygraph from hell. It was amazing how effective. You walk around the altar 7 times. We ask the question, and if you lie, you burst into flames. If you tell the truth, you're okay. So he walked around 7 times with Mary, and they said, no, we never had sex. And they didn't burst into flames, so obviously they didn't have sex. Okay, so am I close now to the questions thing? I'm actually the director over there. Okay, I'm sorry I covered it so quickly, but I could go on forever, so I just cut it down now. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Where can we get your plays?
Hold on just a minute. Maybe you can repeat what she said since
She said, "Where can we get your plays?" You can't. Sorry. Yeah, I haven't published them yet. I have my own kind of publishing of them, and maybe the Naked Stage will do one. Jaritza has said she's interested, but you know, they're funny. They're not critical or anything. They're just supposed to be funny.
Another question?
Yes, ma'am.
When are you speaking here again?
See if you can find out when he'll be back.
The minute I can get another 500 to put in the collection plate.
You know, with inflation.
Yes, sir.
Have you read Charles Templeton's works?
No. Have I read Charles Templeton's works? No, I haven't. I'd love to. What's it about?
No, you have to take in the mic, please. Oh, wait for the mic,
Farewell to God.
so everybody can
A
hear.
Farewell to God. Where are you from?
Originally Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston.
Italian Catholic.
Italian Catholic? My father is Irish, my mother's Italian. You know I was raised Catholic. And was that way, as George Carlin says, until I reached the age of reason. Any other questions? Have I ever been struck by lightning? No, I haven't had that privilege yet. See everybody moving their chairs back. It's all right, ask.
Yep.
It did work.
It did work.
You've forgotten your question, haven't you?
Here's another one. Now, I'm curious to know why you don't want to believe in burning bushes and tablets written in stone, and yet you apparently believe in Moses, and you believe that Mary had a cousin named Elizabeth. I mean, how do you choose which bits to believe and which bits not to believe?
No, it's, first of all, let me put you right on something. It's not that I don't want to believe. I want to believe in a burning bush, in a sea separating by miracles, and the other miracles, manna falling from heaven, from God. But the logic of it doesn't make any sense. There are scientific explanations for these things, but that's not enough. It's the logic. It's like, how do we know that the bush was burning up there? We only know because Moses told us, right?
We know because their book says that Moses said that.
Give her the mic, please.
Okay, so a book said that Moses said that it was there. So that's more credible to you.
No,
To me, it's not. Yeah, it's less credible to me. That's why.
This is my question. Why do you seem to accept Moses as a historical person with a certain education and a certain background when, why is
Right.
that credible?
Well, I was answering the first question. The second question is like, why do I not want to believe? I answered that. Okay. I don't believe that. I just know what I read. So when I read this and I say, this is what I'm told, well, if that happened, this is the real reason. This is the rational explanation. Johnny had a question back there. Johnny Cutler, writer and weight loss guru.
Why is it the sharpest critics of the Bible seem to mostly be people who were born Catholic?
That's an excellent question. Well, there are so many rituals, and this is my opinion again. I believe it's because there are so many rituals and there's such a complex litany that the more complex the machine, for example, in your car, the more likely it is to break. There's so many parts that can go out, right? So if you have a Rotax engine, it's less likely to break. If you have an internal combustion engine, there's so many parts it could break. A piano, 19 pieces to each key, it could break because there's so many possibilities. I think when you have a complex litany and all that, it's very attractive. People love to learn this stuff. But if you have intelligent people learning this stuff, thinking, this doesn't quite mesh. That's my opinion. There was a man with a question. Yes, there you are.
Well, I have the following.
Not that you are not a man. I just said there was. I just happened to recognize there was.
Who is a man? I don't know. My question is the following. You are dealing with a very, very sophisticated book.
Yes.
Or books that have very many levels of meaning.
Yes.
You are taking out of there probably the simplest and I would say the most ridiculous part of it and saying, well, this is the Bible. Now the Bible, unfortunately for us, or for people, contains a lot of wisdom. I'm not saying that you have to believe in it, but there is a lot of wonderful, intelligent stuff there in the dialogues and in the dialogues
Yes.
and in the interactions among the people.
Yes.
I think that to separate it and to say that it's only the unbelievable, ridiculous part that is the Bible is a little bit making making this book very cheap.
I agree that there are a lot of wonderful things in there. I don't have the time to go through the entire book and tell you which is good and which is idiotic. I was asked, can you talk on something, give me a subject that you'll talk on. So I thought, well, the devil and Moses, okay, let's talk on that. Or, to me, I've looked at the Bible, and some of the things it says are wonderful. For example, thou shalt not kill. Let's just take that. We'll go from the sublime to the ridiculous. That's brilliant. Wonderful. We have that. You can't be going around killing people. Wonderful. I think that's excellent. But thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's ass. What the hell does that mean? I can't be jealous of, I want an ass just like him. I mean a donkey. I'm not talking about the American ass. I want a donkey. That's an immortal sin, like my neighbor. That's idiotic, in my opinion. So yes, the Bible has a lot of good things, a lot of good philosophy, a lot of good suggestions, and a lot of bad things, a lot of bad philosophy, like if my neighbor burns his trash, I've got to kill a bull and shove the horns up his arse. I don't know. That kind of stuff just makes me want to puke. Or that gays are evil and should be stoned, or if a woman commits adultery, she should be stoned. This is in our Bible. Are you going to tell me that's good advice? No. So there are things that you will recognize even that are not good advice, and there are things that are great advice. I just can't deal with the whole Bible in 45 minutes.
One last question.
Could this be where we got the idea that spaceships came down to Earth many years ago, and you can imagine the statement from the guys on the ground from the spaceship saying, "Beam me up, Scotty, there's no intelligent life."
It is quite possible, I know Peter's just being funny, but it is quite possible that actually happened, and I mean, there are civilizations, Egyptian, Mayan, etc., that have carvings and stories about people with space helmets coming down and bringing them knowledge. So I think it's very possible. They're staying away right now for the most part. They're not giving us any knowledge. Every now and then their cloaking device fails and we go, "Ah!" and it cloaks again. Anyway, so yes, I think that's a possibility, to be serious. And, who knows? I mean, honestly, all I'm saying is, when you read the Bible, and don't just read the Bible, read some of the Quran that's been translated into English. It's interesting as hell. But read it logically. Read it like in context. When God said, "Be fruitful and multiply," that doesn't mean you can't have bloody well condoms, and you can't stop. You have to multiply every time you make love. I mean, I know that's how you are, Peter, but most people always make his wife pregnant. But for example, in Italy, the Catholics, and I studied in Italy for a long time, and they are so much more intelligent than the Catholics in, for example, America. In America, the Catholics are nutty. In Italy, you say, "You're using contraception" to a couple. And I say, "Yes." But the Pope says that you shouldn't. They say, "Well, he doesn't play the game, he shouldn't make the rules." This is a rational way of looking at religion.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnny. very much. Another view. Our presenter next week is Otto Rand. He's here. And there's a long list of accomplishments and things that he has done. You can see the full listing on the bulletin board over here. I just want to tell you a bit about the subject. He's going to present a short analysis of religious thought and behavior from the most primitive times to the birth and expansion of monotheistic religions. The purpose of the presentation is to show how the need of individual and group contact with the afterworld and spirit worlds turned into a powerful political force that stopped responding to individual spiritual needs and concentrated instead on acquiring power and influence to suppress and replace other religions and their followers. That's the essence of it, so I think we'll have another good one next week. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and turn your cell phones back on. Pick up your coffee cups and trash, put them in the trash, and stack up the chairs, please. And thank you for coming. We hope to see you next Monday. Thank you very much.